All right, welcome everybody. I'm Bonnie from Academic Technology, and we're here today to talk about how to set up your forums in Sakai. The forum tool is a discussion forum that allows you to create topics for your students to discuss, for them to post conversations, and then for you to grade those conversations if you want to. I'm going to start by sharing my screen. And you'll see I'm in my sample course. I'm on the overview page. And I'm going to click the forum tool in the left toolbar. This is where we get started with our forums. If you don't have forums anywhere in your toolbar, you'll need to go to Site Info, Manage Tools, and select the forum tool, and then hit Continue and Finish. Now, you may have questions throughout, and we're a small group, so feel free to unmute yourself and ask when it's relevant. I'm happy to take this in whatever direction you guys need. When you come into a newly created course, you should have this generic forum, class discussion forum, ABCD, whatever your course title is. And you'll probably have a topic called general discussion. So if you want to edit the existing forum name to say, call it whatever you want, you can use the forum settings. And the settings, forum settings and topic settings buttons are where you go in to change an existing forum. And in fact, the class I'm working on is a site course, 5700B. I can provide a short description for my forum. People generally don't do anything at all with the forum itself, because the forum is just a container for topics, and topics are what contains the student conversations and faculty and anybody else in your course who would participate in the conversations. So your forum doesn't really need much more than a title, but if you want to explain anything about how you want your students to use the forum, you can type in a little bit of text up to 255 characters in the short description. This is where you might put something that's important for all forums. Weekly topic posts due by Wednesdays at 11:55 p.m. Eastern Time. Now, if that's true for all of the topics in this forum, you could certainly put this in the short description. And any way you wanted to describe this forum, you could. You could even add an attachment, say if you had a rubric that you were going to be using for grading your forums. If you lock the forums, students will not be able to post in it. So make sure that's unlocked before you start your class. We generally don't moderate topics in the forum. That would be where you had to read each post and then approve it before others could see it. But you can do that for this entire forum. I recommend not setting this at the forum level, but at the topic level if you want to use it. And then you can require users to post before they can read other people's posts if you want to. The availability options are to show now or to specify dates when you'd want it to start showing later. We recommend you only use an open date if you don't want this to open, say, till August 1st, but not using a close date, because when the close date happens, it doesn't just freeze the forum as it is, it actually hides the forum, so people can't even go back and review it. So that's a very restrictive field. So I use 99 times out of 100, I use show immediately for the forum, and then I would control the hiding and the delay on the topic level. I like to automatically mark all messages in a conversation as read. Most forum tools out in the world I'm familiar with do this by default. When you've read something, it goes from bold to unbold. and it marks it as read. By default in Sakai, it doesn't do anything, but it gives you a mark as read button where you choose to mark each forum that you've read as read, or each topic that you've read as read, or each conversation that you've read. So I suggest that we turn this on by default. I don't choose a gradebook item in the creation of the forum, or usually in the creation of a topic. And the permissions down here tell you the roles that are in Sakai and what permission each of those people will have. So academic support and the instructor are both owners, and you can see what that means by clicking the Customize button. It means they have the ability to create a new topic, a new conversation, a new reply. They can post to gradebook, they can change settings, they can read and mark as read. And they can identify anonymous authors. They can edit all messages and delete all messages if need be. I usually leave the default settings alone. A guest lecturer would be able to review comments but not post. Same thing with an observer. And the students are marked as a contributor, meaning that they can create new conversations. You'll see they can't create new topics or new forums. And they can reply to other conversations, and they can read and mark items as read. They can edit their own messages and delete nobody's messages. If a student wanted to delete one of their messages, they'd have to ask the instructor. So those are our default settings. And you'll see this class has two additional groups that have been created, Group A and Group B. And in the case of this main forum, we don't want them to have any permissions to even see this. So only the students can see it. And then you can hit save. Now that process of editing this forum by using the forum settings button is very similar in using the new forums button to create a new forum. You have all the same options. And the reason why I didn't create a new forum is because a forum's just a container. You don't usually need more than one of them in your course. Although there are times if you have weekly discussions and you want to put those in one forum, and then let's say you had a master's project forum that you wanted all the conversations about the master's project to be in a separate forum. That would be a totally good reason to do a separate forum for a different project in the same class. And I definitely have seen faculty do this. Or if you have a one-on-one forum where you try to set up a topic between you and each student separately, you might not want those littered in to your main forum. You'll see when you create a forum that you need to add at least one topic for the forum above to be active. So in order for a student to even see this forum, you need to create a topic. And you can use this create a topic button. This will create a topic within this forum. Or you could create a new topic down here in your main forum. So we're mostly going to be working with this main forum today. And so I want to look at how to add a new topic to my class discussion forum. This will be my weekly one. But I did want to pause and see if there were any questions at this point.
This is Nancy Ruddy. I just wanted to clarify. So it sounds like what you're saying is even if there's a forum for each week with a specific task or question or whatever, or if there's multiple questions for each week, it doesn't make sense to create different forums. And I guess I'm just trying to figure out like thread management, right? So like if there's 2 questions for a week, is there a way to separate the 2 threads of conversation, or does it all just have to be jumbled together and people have to figure it out?
No. Okay. So let me clarify. The forum here is just a container, and within that container, you would create different topics. In this case, why don't we start by creating a new topic? We could call this one Week 1, Question 1, and then what is the meaning of life? All right. This could have a short description, a long description, 200 to 300 words for your first post and reply to 2 of your peers. All right, then you could put the big question in here with more details about what you want it. And so a topic is essentially a thread, as you called it. Within a topic, there can be multiple conversations. And I'll show you how to either create those or have your students create those. So let's just say you had some more details for this topic. Hang on one sec. All your detailed paragraphs could go down here. You could add an attachment if you wanted. You could, as we suggested, not lock the topic, not moderate the topic. In this case, you might want to or not require them to post. And then we'll show it immediately. And we'll go through some more of these settings again in the next one. I'm going to post a second one. You leave all these defaults and just hit save. You'll see what we've done is we've created a new topic within this forum. And then when the students look in the topic, what we would have them do is start a new conversation. And then each student could do their initial post by starting a new conversation, and then people would reply to their posts. Or the instructor can start a conversation and please reply to my post. So this is where the actual threads of the conversation happen, down here at the level beneath the forums, beneath the topic description, and then in the conversations. Does that make sense? Okay, I got a thumbs up there from Nancy. So now let's say you have another question for this week. You just come into the forum that you want this topic to be in. When you do new topic, you might do week 1. And I usually try to have a sort of alphabetic or numeric way of ordering these. Let's just say, for example, this one is called Introduction to the Counseling Profession. I am copying and pasting from, let's say, a Word document or something like that. Here's my full description of what I want them to do. As you see, it can be formatted into lists and bulleted lists, bolded items, headings, all those things that are useful. We often like to see a very short description up here because the short description always shows, and I'll show you where. And then this is where we would pick, you could add your attachment, show immediately. Now these notification options allow email notifications for new messages. So if you allow these messages to be sent to people by email, so they can be triggered midweek right when they happen, instead of waiting until the next time they come into Sakai, we recommend that. And unless you're having a particularly private conversation, we usually include the contents of the message in email notifications. But in a trauma class or something like that, where you might not want to be sharing the information across email, you might uncheck that so that only the title and indicator, the students will then get a message that said, there's a new post in week 1, question 1, blah, 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 by Bonnie Powers. But they have to go into Sakai to see it. Unchecking this means the content of the message wouldn't come across an email. So if you want to these are your notifications that you can choose for which type you want. This is a very generic notification, and this gives them the full text of the post in their email. By default, because my forum has messages automatically marked, this is automatically set as marked. And you don't have to select a gradebook item at this point. We'll be selecting a gradebook item when we actually grade the topic. And then your permissions are down here. And in this case, I want to leave this item open to all students as contributors and not assigned just to a specific group. So we leave the default permissions and we hit save. So you'll see this is how I would structure 2 questions in a given week. And you don't even have to mark them as week 1 or week 2 if you just wanted to numerically put your questions in order, week 1, week 2, or you could put a date here for when you posted the questions or when they were due to keep them in date order. Now you'll see every time I create a topic, it lands at the top of the forum. And I think that's perhaps counterintuitive to the way we like to do it. But you can use this organize button here at the top to change the order. All right. This allows you to put your forums in order. So I want this master's project forum to be down below. So I'm going to make it forum number 2, and this will be forum number 1. And then I want to put these in order. So if I want this to be the 3rd item and this to be the 2nd item, then when I hit save, these are in the order that I really want them in. Hopefully that's helpful so that it doesn't matter what order you create your questions in, you know that you can always put them in the order that you want students to see them in.
Bonnie?
Go ahead, Shira.
So when I've been playing around with this, and I might be jumping ahead here, I notice when I try to link forums to lessons, I get all of my topics come up. Would I manage that by using the availability section?
No. So you're saying you are on a lessons page and you want to link it into your forum.
Correct.
Okay. So there's a tool in lessons, as you know.
Okay.
If you wanted to add a link to a forum topic that you have built, if you link to the forum, it shows all of the topics, I believe. But usually what you want to do is not select the forum that you want them to answer on that week. You want to select the topic.
Okay.
Okay. And then when you do that, you'll see you get the little double bubbles, week 1, question 1. And if, for example, you're in your week 1 lesson and you wanted to add a link to another, like Nancy suggested, if you have 2 questions that week, then you add to question 2.
Okay, thank you. That makes that I'll look for that in lessons. Thanks.
Okay. And let's just experiment. Let's check out and see what happens when you link to a forum and see if this is what you're experiencing. When you link to the whole root forum, it just brings you to the forum top. And then when they click that, they then would have to select which topic they were going to add. So it's not as detailed an instruction. It brings them to a place where they have to select something else.
Okay.
So we would recommend linking to the topic, the specific topic, and not to the forum heading itself. Because typically you only have 1 big forum, maybe 2 in your entire class. And the lessons pages are to help say, this is all about week 1. Okay, so we have created a forum. We've created a couple of topics. And then you may want to see what happens beneath that. When a student clicks into—
Before you move on, can I ask a question? I'm sorry.
No, go right ahead.
I was struck by the sheer number of emails that would be generated if every time somebody put something on there, you're going to get an email. What's kind of best practice? And is that like really the only way to have it set? Is there any way to have it send you a summary of activity or something like that.
Yes, so up here on the Watch tab, which everyone has, each student and each faculty member, anybody on academic support, can come in and choose their notification preferences. When you create the forum and the topic, you're saying this forum and topic is allowed to send email notifications, but each individual decides how many they want from their classes. All right, so an individual can say, I don't want any email notifications from this class, this whole Sakai course for forums, all the forums. They can say, send me an email when a conversation that I've contributed to receives a new message. So only the ones that you've posted or replied in, the little threads, or just send me an email for every message that's posted. So this is what individuals get to choose to control the amount of email that they get. Nobody has to receive any of those via email if they don't want to. They just come in here and select their preferences at the beginning of the course, and they can come in here and change them at any time if they're getting overwhelmed with emails. You can also use Google filters to filter these forum notifications into a sub-label in Gmail so that you don't get them in your inbox, but you do have them in, let's say, a label called, Psych 101 forums. And then you can read those when you want to in your email, or you can just have no notifications and not get them in your email and only read the content when you come into Sakai. So that's an important part of how individuals control what they see. And this watch tab is only for the forums. So this doesn't eliminate them from receiving announcements that you send via email or emails that you send in your assignments or in the other tools. This just allows them to control the forum emails that they would otherwise get. Okay, so in theory, if we had a 7-week class, you might have 14, 15, if you had 2 questions a week, you'd have 14 topics under this forum. And when a student went in to look at one, they would either, you'll see the short description shows on the forum page. So that's why we allow 255 characters. If there's those quick hitter things like how long does this have to be and when is it due, that would be great in the short description because that always shows. The full description is hidden by default unless a student clicks on this arrow to open it up, because they usually see that when they click on the topic itself. All right, so this shows, here is the topic, here's the sub description, here's the full description of what they're supposed to do, and then the student's job would be, there are 1 or 2 ways of how you manage discussions. Either the faculty member starts a new conversation and asks all their students to reply to that conversation, and then all of the threads are in one nested bunch. Or you can ask each student to post their response with a new conversation, and that should be a direction in here, or in just in your class discussion of this is how I want you to post your forums. So then under your threads here, let me just say I was posting one. And I would say Bonnie's response, 42 green, Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy says so. Okay, and they post, or they could add an attachment to their post as well. Now, my response is listed here, and then each student would have their initial post listed here. And if you then wanted other people to reply to me, they could read my post, reply to my post, and you would see everything from my response in one conversation and everything from each student's response in another one. So if you had 12 students, in theory, you'd have 12 conversations that each would have nested threads of a post and replies. If you want, instead of having 12, you only want to have 1, then you, the instructor, should start the conversation. and tell them to reply to it. Because otherwise you'll have some students that just come in here and click the start a new conversation button. And some students will come down here and hit reply if there's something in there to reply to. But if you haven't posted anything in here, then the only thing for them to do is to start a new conversation. So the value in having one threaded conversation is that it's more like a classroom discussion. People are posting and responding to each other in a more organic way. One of the challenges is it's a little harder to grade that because you don't have a conversation for each student to look at their post and then grade their post. But also if you have 12 conversations, you have to look in your grading Bonnie, you have to look at Bonnie's post, and then you have to look at Bonnie's replies in the other conversations in order to know what to give her as a grade. So they're both, you know, they have different pros and cons for the style of conversation you want to develop in an online forum. If you have everybody doing their own thread, it's a little bit like posting an assignment with some opportunity for feedback. If you put it all in one conversation, it becomes a more organic, and I can say disorganized in the best possible sense of the way. You know, it's based on people and their engagement. They're going to reply when they reply and respond to something they find interesting or things like that. And they'll be involved all in one big discussion. But that's totally up to the instructor for how you do that. All right, I'm going to go back to the homepage and see if there are any questions on any of this.
Well, go ahead. Okay, perfect timing. Thank you. It's helpful to hear that how you set it up really impacts the way they engage with it and the way you can track things. Because there's going to be weeks where I want them to share their thoughts and their thoughts as kind of an assignment, such that I don't really want them to read everybody else's thoughts and then just, you know, put a few thoughts together from everybody else and pretend they're their own, you know, like saving the time of watching the video or doing whatever the activity was. But I also do want them to be able to comment on other people's thoughts. So it just sounds like if you have them start their own conversation, add their thoughts, and then even do it as like a two-step process, like add your thoughts first, and then at a different point in the week, you're going to look at other people's things and respond to them. Does that seem reasonable? Or is that,
yeah, it's very common, especially in our asynchronous courses, for faculty to say your post is due by Wednesday at midnight, and then your replies to other students is due by Sunday at midnight, so that you obviously can't post on anybody who doesn't reply. You have to wait until after Wednesday night when everybody's done their original, and then you have a few days to read everybody's responses and reply to however many your instructors asked you to reply to. So also, don't forget, in topic settings, if for a particular topic you wanted to force them to post before they read, you can use this require users to post before reading selection. And that means the first thing that they have to do in a topic is to post a response before they can read anything else that's in there. The other way, the instruction to have them post by Wednesday and reply by Sunday is you don't force it, but you're telling them what you want and you're trusting them to be honest about it. All right, so there's a couple of other things you can do in forums, and that is you can set up forums for small groups. So let's say, for example, you have people working on master's projects and master's theses, and you have assigned them master's theses is group A and master projects is group B, and you want these two groups to discuss or have a forum where they can talk about things. So we've created a forum for master's project, and we'll just call it I'm going to change this just to be clear, master's project / thesis forum. I don't care about any other details. And then I want a new topic, master's thesis discussions. Let's just call them chats. We'll just We'll leave that in there. We can put whatever details in we needed to. And in this case, I only want group A, because I've assigned all my thesis students. I want them to be the contributors and not all students. All right, so this becomes a topic only for group A if I remove the student's ability to post or view it even, and I tell only group A students can contribute. And then if I had another topic for the master's project chat room, and I only wanted that for group B, I'd make group B the contributors and students none. And when I save that, so what happens is only people who are in group A can see the master's thesis chat room, and only people who are in group B can see the master's project chat room. Now I'll show you where I created those groups. And you have to create the groups before you can assign them to a forum. But if you've created forums and then you create groups, you can then assign forums to groups in a third step afterwards. So up here in site info, you have manage groups. And this is where you can build and manage your groups. So let's just say, instead of group A, I would call this master's thesis students. And then you get to select which students end up in that group by clicking on their name and moving them into the group, or clicking on their name and moving them out of the group and just hitting save. So you'll see now I still have two groups. It will have updated in forums. Let's say group B isn't a very descriptive name. I can again click on group B and call this. So you could use this for group projects so that students have a place to discuss asynchronously if they're working on a team of some sort and that you need them to have a forum to do this. You can also do assignments by group. So these groups can be useful in more than just forums if you need them to be. And again, at the top, if you just wanted to create a new group, it's very simple. It looks just like that. Group C. And we'll just put my co-teachers in here in this group. We'll call it group C, instructors. That way you could create a forum or an assignment for your instructors. So you can use these groups in any way that helps facilitate your course. So these forums, if we looked at a student view, would look exactly like this for all students. And then down here, this master's project would be hidden from my master's thesis students, and this master's thesis would be hidden from the chat. But I want to show you some of the other topic settings, because there are two icons that come up a lot. And one is when you leave a topic or forum in draft mode, I should have just saved it as a draft. All right, it's throwing a little error for me. You'll see that you get the word draft before a topic. This word draft can also come before a forum. If this word draft comes before a topic, no one can see that topic except for instructors and academic support. And if it's before the forum, no one can see anything in the entire forum. So in order to remove the word draft from a forum or from a topic, you would click either forum settings or topic settings, and you'd scroll to the bottom and you'd hit save instead of save draft. Okay. And that's gonna throw a little error for me again. We'll just pretend those errors didn't happen, and you'll see when we go back, the draft has been removed.
Bonnie,
Go ahead, Shira.
what would be the point of saving it in draft, since you can still make changes after you've saved it.
If you don't want the students to see it while it's in development. So let's just say you've done your topic, you're happy with weeks 1 through 4, but you haven't perfected weeks 5, 6, and 7 yet. You don't know quite what those questions are going to be, or you're not sure that you're going to put them in that order. You could leave those 3 in draft until, a few weeks before you get there, so that they can't see your changes as you're making them.
And but couldn't you also use that availability piece to keep the students from seeing it if you're not quite ready?
Yes, that availability option. So the difference is when you go to specify dates is this will automatically show it on a given date. And the draft will not show it until you manually go in and change it. So it depends where you are in your head. If this went live, I'd be ready to go on this date. Perfect. You just select your open date. You say, I want it to go on the 31st. You can pick a time, of course. You can go at midnight, or, let's say you want it to go midday.
Right.
So that's up to you. You can decide how you want to control that. Let's just say you put it out and you think you're done with it, and then you don't want it to be released for 1 more week. So when I'm done and I know I'm ready to release it, I put this open date on there. If I'm not sure that this is exactly the direction I'm going to go, then I would put it in draft until I'm sure which direction I'm going to go. But
Okay.
You can use those 2 features interchangeably.
Thanks, Bonnie.
No problem. So I'm going to save this one with this date because I want to show you the icon that appears. Clearly, I might be having a little networking trouble today since I'm getting these errors. But we're going to go back to Forums and show you. You see this little calendar icon appears when you have a date that hasn't been reached yet. So it means no one can see this until that date comes, except for me, the instructor, and other instructors in my course. The other icon you might see is the lock icon, and that happens when you have locked a topic or disabled it. And let's see if this is going to happen again. Okay, it didn't happen. So you'll see this one has a lock. So neither one of them can be seen, but you can feel comfortable. All right, this one has a release date because it's got the calendar icon, and it will be shown on the date that I've chosen. This locked one will never be shown. I have to unlock it before anybody can see it except for the instructor. And as you know, you can also lock a forum. You can also specify a date for a forum to open the same way. And you can save it as a draft. All right. So this forum, the whole thing is in draft mode, so they can't see it. It won't be released until tomorrow, so they can't see it. And then tomorrow, this calendar icon will go away, so you'll know, or it'll be with a little green dot here that will show that it's showing, and it's locked. If any of those 3 things are showing on a forum, nothing underneath it will be able to be seen. And if any of those 3 icons are showing on a topic, that topic won't be able to be seen. So if you have students report to you, I can't get in to answer this week's topic or answer this week's question, they'll probably call it a forum because that's what the tool is named. Make sure you go in and see if you have any of these icons that might be in the way. And again, you use the forum settings or the topic settings to go in and edit those things. You can unlock it. You can show it immediately. And you can save it fully and not as a draft. And you'll see all of those inhibitor icons sort of go away. All right, so that is the building and creation of forums. Can you guys picture how you'll be using this in your course? And can you think of any wrinkles that I haven't covered that you might want to use? Or does that pretty much get you started? All right, I'm going to take that as a, I'm thinking about it, and feel free to shout out a question if you have one. So one of the last things we want to do is people have posted to these forums. Let's just say week 1 is over. They've theoretically posted their posts and replies to week question 1 and question 2. And you want to come in here and grade each student. There's 2 ways to do it. And the way that we've been recommending is that you go to the More button next to the topic. And then you click grade. So not next to the forum, because you don't want to grade the whole forum. You have this grading button. But before you can actually grade, you have to have a place in your grade book to put that grade. So what we need to do is go to our grade book and make sure that there is an item listed in the grade book for each form that we're going to give. Now in this case, I see we have one for week 2 and I see we have one for week 3, but I don't see anything for week 1. So I'm going to add a gradebook item, and we have 2 questions in week 1. So week 1, question 1, discussion. You can call it whatever you like. You should make it really clear to yourself as to what you're going to do. You don't need to put the whole question in here, but if that helps you remember, that's a good idea. And then you have to decide how many points you're going to grade a forum on. It might be 100, it might be 10, it might be just a 0 or a 1 if you want to mark them as done or not done. You can give a due date. I generally don't unless I'm using the calendar. I release the item to the students and I include the course grade in calculations or not. Most of the time, not. And then you can create, or if you hit the plus sign, it's create and do a new one. So we'll create that week 1 one, and then we want also week 1 question 2 discussion. Generally, we have the same number of points, but every discussion forum, every topic can have its own number of points if you want. And typically, I don't include in the course grade calculation unless you are using Sakai to grade your entire course. If you just want to send out a grade for this assignment and not average a bunch of them together, don't check that. And when you create, you'll see now we should have 2 new rows in our grade book. Week 1, question 1, all right. And week 2, question 2. Now, when we go to grade forum, week 1, question 1, under more grade, we can select the gradebook item, week 1, question 1, as to where we want to put those grades. Now you'll see everyone in your course is listed. Only the students have a box that you can grade. And I usually show the comments before I start grading. We recommend that you only grade 3 students at a time before you hit submit. We are having some issues right now where people put in all their grades and they hit submit, and we think it's because of an internet connectivity issue, that the grades don't go in and they've lost the work that they've done. So we recommend grading a couple, let's say 3, 4, whatever you're comfortable with. And, you know, add in, you know, you can use comments directly from your rubric. You can copy and paste a longer comment. You can make very specific comments to a student. As you can see over here from the details pane, from the student's name pane, you can look at their other grades and things like that. Once they're in, we don't have any in for Jenny right now, but let's see, Jen Fritz, no one is posted, so you're not seeing much. But then when you come down here and hit submit grades, you'll see for those 3 students, when we go to the grade book, that when I click down here, and scroll across. Sorry, I'm going to find the one that I put in. All right, this is where you can pick your column from here, the ones that you want to see. Week 1, question 1. Just trying to get it to show here. It seems to be hiding from my list. All right, so here's week 1, question 1 discussion and the 3 grades that I put in. And if you wanted to see the comments, you could click on the comments. When the students are in here, they will only see their name and they will only see their grades, of course, if you have the grade book showing to them. All right. So back to forums. There's one more tool in the forums that I'm recently new to using, and they're these template settings. These allow you to set the defaults, like your global settings in Zoom. Every time you create, after you set these template settings, every time you create a new forum or a new topic, these will be the default settings. You can change them when you're in there, but by default, you're not going to moderate. By default, you are choosing no, I'm choosing no, not to require users to post. I'll show immediately by default, and then automatically mark messages in a conversation as read by default. And then these are the default roles. But let's just say on all of your topics, you're going to require them to post before reading, and you want to moderate them all. Instead of having to select both of those buttons every time you make a new topic, you can set them here in the template so that they'll always be set that way when you hit the new forum or new topic button. And that can be a time-saving feature if you are doing 2 questions a week in a 10-week course, you know, when you have to do that 20 times. The other time-saving feature is that if you get week 1 set up and you like it, under more, you'll see this duplicate topic button where you can just change it to week 2, and then you can put your new question in here. And when you duplicate, it keeps all the same settings. You see, even the release date is kept on your new week 2 topic. And what that means is you can just go in and edit your topic settings. You don't have to change the short description or type in the short description each week. If you have a list of specific instructions that you use every week, it'll still be in the description. All you have to do is come in and change the title and then the instructions, and everything else in your topic will stay the same. So if you get one that you really like, the way it's written, it's got all the pieces and parts that you need, you can use that duplicate button to make your life a little bit easier in terms of doing the same thing over and over and over. You don't have to work so hard. So other questions about forums? You can always email us your questions at at.antioch.edu.